Good morning. Welcome to my page, Wellness in 2 Words. I thank you for being here. This is my first official video post. So I appreciate your passion for wellness, and I'm glad that you're here to hopefully learn something from my story and what I have to share. Um, so, to give you some background, I'm an ER physician, board certified, board trained ER physician, and have been for 18 years. And I've had an interesting journey in the last couple years of my career, which I was very committed to, and I have always enjoyed helping people in crisis. Like, hashtag not scared. Like, I've always been that person who's like, let's just roll up our elbows, roll up our sleeves, get into it, and just go. So I feel like ER was a perfect career for me for many years. But what I started to see within that career, and you get perspective when you've done something for 18 years, you see these changes within the system, within patient populations. Like, you just see, this isn't how it used to be. And it's not a fuzziness of memory where you're just not remembering it clearly. There are very distinct statistics that support this. We are sicker than we've ever been. The medical system is not able to address so many of the health issues that people have because of either, I won't say lack of understanding, but lack of an appreciation of what the factors are. I think sometimes the research isn't always accurate. So there's so many different factors that are going into it right now. And so from a personal standpoint and also from a professional standpoint, I felt like things were coming to a head. So professionally, I'm seeing far more heart disease, more cancer. And keep in mind, when people come in the ER, they are a distinctly sick population. So you're already selecting out healthy people. Healthy people are not going to be there. People who are having concerns or issues or problems are going to be there. So you've already got the subset. But within that subset, it seems like there's a higher frequency of neurologic diseases. And we know the statistics bear that out, that we see far more Parkinson's, MS, autism, like all of these diseases that are neurologically based are becoming more frequent. We're seeing more autoimmune problems. We're seeing more lupus. We're seeing more rheumatoid arthritis. Like all of these, psoriasis, all these things that have an autoimmune root cause are becoming more prevalent. And we're seeing skyrocketing rates of metabolic disorders, diabetes. Well, I'm going to lump hypertension in there because they really are, there. So hypothyroidism, diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, all of these things that have an inflammatory or metabolic component to them. PCOS, infertility, female issues, cancer. It's staggering how unhealthy we are. And you try to ask somebody how to fix it. And so I think that the thing that became the most paramount for me in the ER was I would look at people and go, you're so sick. You're so profoundly sick. And it goes so deep that one ER visit is not going to be able to solve this. And I would say, I suspect you could be hypothyroid. Well, my doctor says my labs are normal. Or I suspect that, that this is the problem. And it became abundantly clear that that forum was not where those things were going to change for people. You can put a Band-Aid on it. There was not a Band-Aid big enough for a lot of the problems that I was seeing. And it was so disheartening. And then couple that with the stress of seeing sick people that you are struggling to fix within a broken system with impaired resources, like short staffing and, budget constraints. And it just became so unsustainable for me on a personal level that I had my own hormonal crash. So I'll be 50 this year. I feel amazing. I just love my life. And I could not have looked you in the face and said that to you 8 years ago. I could not have said that with any conviction even 4 or 2 years ago. So I have progressively gotten more healthy, but there are certain choices that I have made that are hard and fast that I'm just like, it's non-negotiable. I know that's going to make me feel bad, and therefore I'm not going to do it. Or I know this is going to make me feel really good, and therefore I'm going to do it. So I think things became very important for me in terms of empowerment for patients to know you can feel better and you can change a lot of things. It is a daily choice, and you can make the right choices. Don't feel hopeless. So that's the purpose of this, because I made changes that made me so much better, and I've been tracking the science, and that's part of the purpose of this is to ferret through research to kind of like say, so yes, people who do this are better, but this is why, and this is what we're finding, and we're going to find out that science in about 10 or 15 years is going to catch up, but there are a lot of people that I care about that I don't want to get sick during that time. I want them to be around for that experience. So that's the reason why. That's my why. My why is I felt sick and terrible, and I saw lots of other sick people, and I have lots of people I care about around me, that I don't want them to be like that. So that's my why. If you ever wonder why people do things, like why I'm a little shy. I don't want to be on video, but I want to share. So that's it. So let's start with the first key component of my wellness, and that was 100% diet. You cannot out-supplement, out-exercise a fundamentally poor diet. What goes in your mouth matters. What comes out of your mouth matters. So key component of wellness, daily choice. There is nothing we do every day that impacts us more than eating. Now, I can tell you I've come from a recent season of stress and it's not serious stress. It's not, been a sick family member or something, it's some tragedy. Thank goodness. I'm very blessed in that regard. But come from a season of stress because I had a personal creative project that I had committed to. I've done it every year for a few years in a row. And so I had a deadline with people depending on me. And when it comes to creative energy and flow, for me, I have to have the right circumstances for that. So trying to create the necessary environment for me was a little challenging too, time constraints, etc. So if you've ever underestimated stress and what it makes you eat when you're trying to really watch your diet, and how good your diet when it's really controlled makes you feel, and then you're really kind of like get this perceived stress or actual stress, perceived or actual, I guess it really doesn't matter. It's how you feel. So you're feeling stressed. I started eating like crazy. I had been keto for a very long time. Inflammatory markers went down. I lost 30 pounds. Most of it was visceral abdominal weight, which we know is the more harmful weight. I felt amazing, just et cetera. And then cortisol bumped. I was eating every hour. I was eating Pop-Tarts. I have not gone to the grocery store and bought Pop-Tarts, and I can't tell you when. And my body was like, you want Pop-Tarts? You don't know it. You really want that Pop-Tart. And so I felt completely out of control when it came to eating. Like if you had a stress eating 101 class, I would be the poster child. So that was like a 2-week struggle for me. I noticed my sleep wasn't as good. I noticed I started to feel sore in old familiar places, just shoulders and back and just fatigued, run down because my sleep wasn't good. I put on like 4 pounds, which my weight had been so stable and so good for a while, and then put on 4 pounds, boom, just done. So stress is a huge influencer in how you feel, and it's a huge roadblock to wellness, and it can derail any dietary plan that you have for yourself. So I would say the first thing you need, there's like a big triangle. It's like diet and foods, and making sure your foods aren't toxic, and then there's stress and sleep management down here, and then there's hormonal and metabolic stuff like thyroid. They all are connected, but they're different points, like on a wellness triangle. So if that is relevant. So diet, number 1. For me, it was keto. For some people, it's paleo, and I will dive into that on a more regular, consistent basis, a deeper basis throughout this vlog. But keto, the driving point with keto is that you basically take what you're eating and make sure it is 60 to 70% fat. So all the dietary recommendations in the past have been that we eat low fat because they were afraid saturated fat was linked to heart disease, and there was some misperception of some of that data and the research. So people were told to eat low fat. Well, then necessarily they ate higher carbs. And we now know that sugar is incredibly inflammatory. It can be a driving cause of a lot of inflammatory diseases, including Alzheimer's. So there's some question about how severely it can affect certain people. But we also know that it causes this insulin response, which then starts you on a roller coaster of consumption and then fat storage, which completely is not healthy. So we'll talk about a keto diet. Huge, number one, huge component of wellness, huge anchor, keystone of wellness. The next one's going to be stress and sleep. So when you talk about stress and you talk about diet, those two are talking to each other and they're completely interconnected. But if you are chronically exhausted, and I know how it is, I have kids on devices, I have to take them out of their hands. But the one thing that I've always been consistent with our kids is regular sleep. They go to bed 7:30, 8 o'clock every night. I'm like, their head has to be on that pillow. And if it is not on the pillow by 8, I'm starting to freak out a little bit. I put oils on their feet every night. We have like a bedtime routine. It's not like it was when they were little, but they know that that's like a non-negotiable bedtime. We're not going to stay up and watch a movie. We're not going to, and they know not to push because I'm like, it's too important. When kids don't get good sleep, they don't grow. When they don't get good sleep, their food cravings change. They make more cortisol. They eat bad things. They crave bad things. So we stay as a family fairly keto paleo overall for diet, but precocious puberty, all that stuff, it's all linked with lack of sleep, lack of melatonin, just inadequate sleep is hugely detrimental to your health. And if you're struggling with sleep, you need to look at sleep apnea as a possible root cause, because that is just a completely different extreme health problem that creates. You're hypoxemic, which means you don't get enough oxygen while you sleep. That is definitely going to trigger a stress response and cortisol production. I mean, if I got smothered with a pillow every night in my sleep, I would be stressed. So you have this baseline increased cortisol response, which is going to make you have more abdominal fat because that's where cortisol makes you store it. And so you get on this like treadmill, this cycle that is very difficult to break when that's part of the issue. So sleep and stress are huge. And then for me as a woman, which men are simpler than men when it comes to hormones, they just are. Andropause can be big for men and can cause problems. But the biggest thing for women, I think, is because stress depletes a lot of our hormones and skews our pathway when it comes to progesterone, especially as we age. Then you get hormonal imbalances where you either get adrenal fatigue or you get estrogen dominance, which I think is a very real phenomenon. Anyone who tells you it's not true, I'm like, oh, then you walk a mile in my moccasins and we'll talk about it. So I was not only having adrenal fatigue issues because of having a stressful job in the emergency room and taking on the stress of the patients I was caring for, along with the stress of expectations of performance, but also the stress of trying to be a working mom and trying to be everything that I wanted to be to my husband and my family. And then aging on top of it. I mean, I'll be 50 this year, so my hormonal secretion, my hormones were starting to go south. But I had plenty of estrogen. I just didn't have plenty of progesterone to balance it. And when those are out of balance and testosterone are out of balance, it is not pleasant for anyone around you. Estrogen dominance is a real phenomenon. And women who are postmenopausal, who actually go on just estrogen for replacement, it is something that they struggle with, because they have unopposed estrogen and they are out of balance as well. So when we talk about the wellness equation, you have diet and you have what may be in your food or what's not in your food that's important. So toxin exposure, and then also kind of goes in with neuroendocrine disruptors and your environment and your cosmetics and your supply. There's so many harmful compounds in not only what we eat potentially, but also what we put on our bodies. So I'm going to put that together. So there's diet, and there's environmental toxin exposure together, and then there's sleep and stress, trying to manage all that, and then there's also the hormonal metabolic part of the equation, which is like your thyroid and those kind of things. They're all talking to each other. They're all working or not working in concert with each other to either help you feel well or not feel well. So, so my wellness journey, it became very apparent to me that all of those things were not okay, and I had to pick one and start with it. But once you pick one thing to focus on, what you'll find is it gives you momentum. Momentum is how you change. Momentum is how you get reinforcement that what you're doing is making a difference. And so it's worth it to actually go and take that next step, or to continue to doing the step that's working for you. So it takes you out of that cycle of hopelessness about your health, and takes you into this headspace of empowerment, and I can do this, and of possibility. So not to belabor this post, it's a 15-minute video, and I apologize, but I am going to commit now that I'm done with some other projects and they are dusted and done. I'm going to commit to communicating with you about wellness and science, and I'm going to have a website that's going to be functional. I'm going to be blogging on here, but also doing some vlogging. And I would ask you, if you feel led to do so, please share with other people, because I'll never go back. I feel so much better. And I think now, knowing what my body could no longer compensate for, I mean, when I was younger, I could eat whatever I wanted, but knowing now that I'm like, something's changed, and I had to figure out what it was. But I think what I eat, what I interact with, what I put on my body, in my body, had far more profound effects than I had appreciated. And I think as we age, especially, it's much harder to compensate for that. Period. It's just a fact. So I thank you for your time. I look forward to helping you with anything in your wellness journey. I hope that what I've said resonates with you, and if it does, I encourage you to stay tuned. I will commit to trying to share more. Have a great day.